Hey everyone, welcome to Author Nation. I am Melody Ann, and in today's video, I want to talk about revising your work. And what I'm talking about here is developmental editing, because there are lots of different types of editing. And so I'm talking about the first level of editing that you would want to do, or developmental editing. And so your reader is intelligent. Your reader knows what they're doing, they're intelligent, but they don't have the subject expertise that you, the author, has. So when they're reading your book and when you're writing your book, right, you need to find the space, the language, the level of complexity, the tone that is right for the reader. And as a developmental editor, you must put the reader's shoes on. As the author, this can be challenging because you're so close to the work, right? You're so close to your own material. It can be really hard to kind of take that step back, which is why people or editors always say, get someone else to edit your work. But before you send it off to a developmental editor, you can revise your own manuscript to the best that you can, as close as you are to it. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And so what I suggest is once you're finished your draft, you take a break, walk away from it for a week, for a month, whatever you can, just get some distance so that when you come back, you want to try to think of yourself as the ideal reader. You don't want to be coming at it as the author. You want to be coming at it as the ideal reader. And I'm going to give you a whole bunch of questions to help you revise your manuscript so that you can do that before you hire the professional developmental editor. So the whole manuscript as a whole, right? It needs one big idea, one main promise that you are making to that reader. By the end of this book, you will be able to do there's something. So the first big question is, does your manuscript fulfill that promise? Did you stay on track? Did you fulfill that promise? And yes, you fulfilled that promise. Are the chapters in the correct order? Is everything in the right order? Does it flow well from beginning to end, right? Is the material appropriate to your audience and the purpose of the book? And then finally, are the chapters in parallel structure? Especially when the content is really complex. When I'm working with an author, and I've worked with some authors who are, medical doctors, scientists, and they're taking this really complex information. They use, they don't know how to get away from the jargon because there are some very specific words they need. Taking this really complex material, and they want to break it down for somebody who doesn't have a PhD in whatever they have, doesn't have a degree in whatever they have, because they have important information they want to bring to them. And so one of the things you can do is have chapters that are parallel in structure. And so, the reader knows I'm going to get an introduction, and then I'm going to get this, and then I'm going to get that, and then there'll be a story and whatever. So that when they have a parallel structure and the reader understands the structure, they're not trying to cope with new material in that way all the time. They can focus on the actual subject matter. And so for the manuscript as a whole, those are some questions. And now let's look at the individual chapters. So for each chapter, just like the whole manuscript has one big idea, one promise, each chapter has a main idea for that chapter. And how does that main idea lead to the book's main idea or promise? So make sure that each chapter has a main idea or a mini promise that leads to the big promise. And then again, is the material in that chapter appropriate to your audience and appropriate to your purpose? Is the chapter in logical order, or is there some kind of logical progression of ideas to a conclusion? And are there appropriate headings or other navigation aids for each section of the chapter? So in other words, is the chapter broken down into digestible chunks for the reader? You don't just want lots of long text without breaking it up with headings, paragraphs of different sizes, sentences of different lengths and whatnot. So are there appropriate headings or navigation aids that help the reader go from section to section, piece by piece, and is it broken down into digestible chunks for the reader? For each section and each paragraph, can you summarize the main idea of the paragraph and the purpose of the paragraph to justify its existence in your manuscript? So for each chapter, for each section, for each paragraph, can you summarize that, the purpose of it, its main idea, what the reader gets out of it to justify the existence of those words in your manuscript? And then, is the transition from each section smooth? Does each transition make sense? And same with paragraphs. Does the transition from paragraph to paragraph make sense? Is there any extra material, unnecessary material, superfluous material that you can take out? In a book, you don't want extra stuff that the reader doesn't actually need. You don't need it. Oh, this is a nice to have. No, take it out. You don't need it. Keep to what you need, right? Are there any gaps in the material that may lose readers? Are you missing stuff? Is anything repetitive? Are you saying the same thing over and over and over again? Take that out. Are there any, or do you need any visuals, illustrations, what are visuals? Sidebars, pull quotes, graphs, and are they placed appropriately? Are they where they should be in the text, right? What are the features of each chapter, right? Are there stories? Are there illustrations, charts, examples, highlights, sidebars, questions, quizzes, summaries? So what are the features of each chapter, and how do they lend to the benefit of the book? And how do they help the reader digest the material, or how do they enhance the reader's experience of the book? So you need to make sure that everything in it either helps the reader digest it or enhances their experience, right? And if there's stuff you don't need, take it out. Is every assertion fully researched? Does each assertion that you make in the book have evidence to back it up? So you make an assertion, you provide an evidence, and then you draw a conclusion. You want to make sure that you don't go from, this is my assertion, therefore this is my conclusion. You need something in the middle so the reader goes, oh, I see why you think that. Oh, I can agree with that. You need some kind of evidence in between. Do you need supplementary material, a glossary, for example? Do you need anything other than the content of the book? Well, you need to put something into the back matter, such as a glossary or a list of resources that the readers will need. Do you need permissions? Is there anything in it that might be copyrighted that you need to go seek permissions to use in your book? And does each chapter have an appropriate outcome? So that was a lot of questions. Those are a lot of questions. And it can be challenging for an author who's very close to the material to take that step back, to put on those reader's shoes and look at the material from a completely different perspective. What can help is to have a clear and detailed reader persona. I have a video on developing a reader persona. So if you haven't done that, go back to that video. The link will be in the description. And also, remember, here we're talking about developmental editing. So this is the first thing you do, is the developmental editing, right? Before you do any other type of editing. And next week, we're going to be talking about editing your own work in the sense of copy editing, making stylistic and copy editing choices. But this is the developmental editing. This is what you do first. And when that's done, you do what we're doing next week, which is the copy editing. All right, I'm looking forward to it. Go edit your book.